Welcome, everyone, to the Savor Brain headquarters. My name is Kelsey Boyer, and I am so excited to be sitting here with today's guest, who has over a decade of knowledge in the physical therapy realm. In 2018, she sustained a concussion that changed her life forever, which led her to starting her newfound passion as a Vestibular Certified Concussion Specialist. She transformed her personal experience of suffering into a source of inspiration, guiding numerous individuals along their own concussion recovery paths by starting Happy Brain Physical Therapy. Let's all give a warm welcome to Annie Howard. Welcome. Welcome, Annie. And also,
Thank you for having me.
Anybody listening, I am working on getting my voice back, so please bear with me. Annie, we're excited to have you on the show. Obviously, we've done something similar like this for the Brain Factory in the past, and I'm excited to go through it with you now and have this live on the headquarters podcast forever, because even that one Brain Factory that we did, the knowledge that you have for the entire world is critical. And I think you can really help give somebody some hope while they're walking through this journey. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. And obviously, I was just going to say, it's been a journey for you as well. And if you wouldn't mind, if you're open to sharing, would you mind taking us, let's just kick it off by you taking us down your path of your own concussion experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a PT since 2011 and always I worked in a bunch of different areas, mostly in the neuro field. And in 2018, I was on a ski mountaineering trip and I took a crash and tore a ligament in my knee and ended up with a bit of a concussion. And I didn't quite realize it at first because I had so many other things going on. And then sort of as I started to recover from knee surgery and sort of get back to life and get back to work, I started to realize that I absolutely had a concussion. I really was struggling with brain fog and fatigue and irritability and depression. My eyes were really sensitive. I had light sensitivity, and I was, struggling with reading and remembering things. And by that point, I was sort of already headed back to work, and I was starting to do a lot of the things and that kind of traditionally physical therapy has done to treat concussion, and started to sort of realize that the sort of traditional model wasn't really working for me. And so I dove into research and was fortunate enough to find a physical therapist that was able to help me a lot. And then that sort of steered me into a direction of finding my own path and learning about other things and making a really, really good recovery. So I'm super thankful for everybody that was along on my journey. And then as unfortunate as it was to sort of feel like the medical system didn't quite work for me, I was also fortunate enough to be able to forge my own path and sort of open myself up to this whole other world that does exist. There are a lot of really wonderful providers out there, and a lot of things that are maybe by the traditional medical system seen as maybe alternative, but that are incredibly helpful and absolutely helped me. So I jumped off the ship a couple of years ago and decided to start my own business. So I have Happy Brain Physical Therapy, which is physically located in Park City, Utah. And then I also have an online program for people that aren't here.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Like, when obviously the universe brought us together in a time when I also was still experiencing symptoms in my own recovery. I'm 6 years out of this brain surgery, and it is still hurting to move my eyes. This is nuts. And then obviously went to you, and you helped immensely with everything that you have to offer at Happy Brain. And I guess learning about your own experience also supported me, because I was like, wow, this person also suffered, and look at her take her pain into purpose. These are the doctors that people want to find, that people can trust, because you get it. Before we even move on to like the awesome work that you do at Happy Brain, I guess, I don't think I've even ever asked you this, but how long in your recovery journey did you suffer with symptoms until you felt like you found a sort of recipe to aid in your recovery?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably about 6 months until I found somebody and some people who really understood. I think a lot of us have gone through this process where people don't understand and you sort of feel like, I feel this way. And you're sort of maybe not necessarily told, oh, you don't feel this way, but sort of told like, this is just how it is, or not really felt like there's the compassion there. And then that piece sort of then kind of combined with finding somebody who also had the skill and the compassion level. But I would say about 6 months before I started to find some things that really started to help. And then there was a little bit of an improvement, and then a plateau, and then an improvement. And then maybe about 6 months or so after that, I discovered my Livo2 oxygen therapy bike, which I know you have done, which is very unique. And I discovered it through a roundabout way. But that was sort of for me, the kind of final clincher to like really, really feeling just, like myself again.
It's in my questions to ask about the Livo2 bike because that was such a cool experience for me. It's one of those things that you hit a tipping point in your journey where, yeah, you were like, I'm about to redirect my entire career to now treat concussions. Which also, as like your career path, you're like, I've dedicated my whole life to physical therapy and all these other things. And now I'm about to redirect it over here because this injury shook me so much.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I feel like that is hard to find. What were you feeling in that moment when, yeah, you just were like, screw it. Like, I'm about to go over here now, learn all of this new knowledge.
Right.
Like, that's like a whole feat in itself.
I mean, it's definitely a progressive path. And it took quite a bit of perseverance and was a bit of a struggle. And then fortunately, I have a very supportive partner who sort of pushed me off the ship.
The good partner. It's a good partner.
Yes, kudos to him.
No, that's cool. And yeah, I don't know. I guess we can even I didn't know exactly the work that you did either, technically under a title, right? You see a medical title and you're just like, what does that exactly mean? In layman's terms, what exactly does a vestibular concussion specialist do? And what is your treatment approach?
Yeah, so there actually are APTA guidelines. So the American Physical Therapy Association did come out with guidelines in 2020. It says that we should be looking at the neck, vision, and the vestibular system combined. So the vestibular system is a tiny organ in our inner ear that helps us to calibrate balance. If you've ever been at a stoplight and the car next to you goes forward and you all of a sudden think that your car has rolled, you're like, what's your vestibular system? So your visual and vestibular system need to be matched. And then the autonomic nervous system, which is the system in our body that controls all of the things we don't think about. So we don't say body breathe, hormones regulate, digestion, temperature regulation, all of those kinds of things. And then complex motor cognitive dual tasking. So that is my treatment approach, is that we look at these 4 systems, and instead of looking at them in separate silos, I integrate them together.
Yeah. The car analogy was when I was like, I never even thought about that. These are things that you do not think about. We do not learn them in school. For someone like me who walked into your safe space of healing, not knowing what that meant, what do symptoms look like with somebody who maybe is a little off in their vestibular, like vagus nerve alignment? What could be some symptoms that would have them kind of be aware enough to acknowledge that they're going through that?
So in general, concussion symptoms can look like so many things. As you know, my experience is different than your experience is different than a lot of other people's experience. But the big major things are going to be difficulty with vision, either blurred vision, light sensitivity, difficulty reading, maybe reading and not remembering what you're reading, difficulty concentrating, focusing, headaches. Headaches are a big, big thing, and they can come from many different sources. And so that's sort of my job, is to figure out which of these systems all of your symptoms are coming from. So brain fog is huge, fatigue, feeling lightheaded when you stand up, feeling generally dizzy, maybe having new onset of car sickness. You've never been somebody who's had motion sickness before, but now all of a sudden you feel car sick, or even just standing there, you just sort of feel like the world is moving. sometimes people have something called BPPV, which is benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, which is, if you've ever heard of the crystals in your inner ear, they're little calcifications inside your vestibular system, inside your ear, and sometimes they get knocked into the wrong tube. And this is a sense of dizziness that is very specific to laying down, rolling over, standing up, bending down to pick something up. It has to do with the position of your head in relation to gravity. And it causes this insane sense of vertigo. So that's your vestibular system. And that is something that can be treated with repositioning techniques. So when we talk about the vestibular system and vertigo, there are many different causes of dizziness. And so my job is to sort of figure out, where is this dizziness coming from? Is it coming from your vestibular system? The way that your eyes are working together? Is it coming from your autonomic nervous system? So is your skeletal muscle pump not pumping blood back up quickly enough? Is it coming from cognitive fatigue, where just all of your systems aren't working strongly enough, and when you're using your brain, all of a sudden everything just sort of shuts down and you sort of feel out of it and dizzy? So it can look like many different things, which is why it can be difficult to treat, but why it's also so rewarding to treat, and why concussion therapists exist.
It's like a monster under your bed. Like, you don't look, like, you're like, I don't want to look at the monster. I know the monster exists. I don't want to look at it. And before I walked into Happy Brain, that's kind of where I was at, where you were like, whoa, I'm 6 years out of my surgery. I thought I was okay, but these things that I wrote off as normal were not normal. My eye tics and my headaches and, my brain hurting when I exercised and all of these things. I didn't really understand the importance of finding a concussion specialist or like physical therapy until I met you. Why is it important to seek concussion physical therapy? I feel like people just go to their doctor and their primary care. They just like don't exactly know what to do. Why is the next step knowing how important it is to find a concussion physical therapist?
I think a lot of people don't realize that they can get better, or similar to your case, you start to feel a certain way, like, I just get headaches. It's just how it is. My eye just ticks when I get tired. I just can't exercise anymore. I'm getting older. I'm getting out of shape. All of these things. So it's super important, number one, to know that these things can be fixed, and then finding the right person to help you, but not settling for, well, this is just how it's going to be.
I mean, I was settling in mine because I couldn't even handle it anymore.
And you're not alone in that. A lot of people feel that way.
It seems like it's a universal feeling of people feel hopeless. It's overwhelming on the internet of trying to figure out where to go or what to do. And that's the worst part about this invisible injury, is nobody knows how to continue putting one foot in front of the other. The universe brought us together, which, thank you, universe.
Thank you, universe.
If it wasn't for the universe bringing us together, what is the best way for somebody to find a concussion specialist?
Yeah, it's tricky because there's a lot of information out there on the web, and there's a lot of incorrect information or just extremely basic information. Word of mouth is huge. Knowing sort of, in our world of Google, like the right keywords to look for, looking at, kind of concussion specialist, concussion treatment. A vestibular therapist is certainly part of treating concussion, but being a vestibular therapist on its own is not going to fully treat concussion. That's sort of when we start to look at these silos of, okay, well, we can treat this dizziness in a vacuum, but it's not really treating the whole thing. So really, digging in deep, talking to people, when somebody says that they treat concussion, sort of looking a little bit deeper and seeing, what is it exactly that they're doing, asking questions, maybe interviewing them, telling them about your symptoms, seeing if they really understand these different areas that are related to concussion.
Yeah, it almost feels like speed dating. Like, you're just like,
is what you're telling me true?
Yeah. Like, are you lying? Are you sure? It's just like all of these things. That's like one of our things with Save a Brain even. That's why we're building out a resources tab on our website, because that was like the most overwhelming thing in my journey. I'm suffering so much, and it's so hard to find where to go, that, adding you to our resources tab, I was like, yes, she is trustworthy. Put her on here. And, we have been resourcing people up there. Like anytime in like locally, I'm like, go to Happy Brain Physical Therapy, because knowing that someone is word of mouth and in caring hands, so you can actually feel safe in your recovery and not so fight or flight.
Yeah. And that is back to concussion treatment, is kind of getting you out of that fight or flight. So your body goes into that sympathetic overdrive as well. And you're already there. And so it's really hard to know. So that's why, I mean, I love your website. I love that you guys provide those resources, because yeah, we kind of all have to work together and team together. And there are lots of excellent providers out there. And so we all have to support each other.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. And yeah, yours never being through concussion physical therapy before, it was actually pretty enjoyable. You make it so fun. Like
Thanks.
your exercises and everything like that. It's not just boring and lagging out. It's interactive and you can feel your brain firing. And yes, you're exhausted at the end. But if you could maybe take us through, yeah, just some exercises that are like your go-tos at your clinic, so people could maybe understand what physical therapy could look like for the brain?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it is different people have different ideas of what physical therapy is and then what's physical therapy look like for concussion. So basically what I do is I do pretty thorough questioning to sort of figure out what you're feeling and then start to tease out, why you're feeling what you're feeling. So there, for example, headaches, there are many different causes of headaches. And so what we're sort of doing is sorting out the root cause. For many people, part of it is connected to sort of your vision and vestibular system. So doing a lot of exercises that sort of, they work your eyes and your brain at the same time. Maybe you are trying to find, sometimes I use like that picture game where it's like, what's different with each of these pictures, and sort of isolating each eye and then getting your eyes to work together, or other eye exercises that sort of work on the different movements of our eyes. So our eyes converge and they diverge, and we have saccades, which is looking back and forth from target to target. We have visual scanning, but I like to combine it with a balance task and a cognitive task. So because that's how we work in the real world. We're very infrequently isolating our systems. Our life is we're in the grocery store. So we're moving, we're turning our head, we're visually scanning, we're trying to think, we're trying to read, we're trying to remember what we're there for. We're navigating other people. Maybe there are some bright lights. So I like my exercises to try to work as many systems as possible. I also like to do a lot of manual therapy to try to help calm that sympathetic nervous system, manually release some of the muscles in the eyes, do cranial therapy. But again, it all sort of comes back to the original set of questioning and figuring out which systems are causing the symptoms. So sort of not just treating the symptoms themselves, but treating the underlying cause.
Yeah, like getting to the root. Where is this coming from? Let's not put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah,
Let's get
exactly.
it's like gardening. You're like, let me get my hands in here and find the root of this. This can't grow anymore if I don't find the root. Opened my eyes to even, I walked in being like, I have really bad head pain. And you were like, let's needle,
Yes.
do
Dry
these
needling.
things. Yeah, like dry needling, which I never even thought about of helping my symptoms.
Yes, I love dry needling. Anybody who knows me knows I think it
It,
fixes everything,
it was
but
cool.
it kind of
Yeah,
does.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just, dry needling is great.
I have the video somewhere, even the photos, and you had them like, in the little cavity of my nose and over here. And I was like, this is insane. But the relief that I got afterward to not have head pain during the day, or even my case, for example, is like they cut my head open. So I have a lot of scar tissue and stuff like that. And that also has been causing issues. Dry needling can help that.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just overlook these forms of treatment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that, that the person who has had the concussion needs to sort of look so hard for all of these different things. Unfortunately, it's sort of, I guess, how the world works, but hopefully there will be more and more concussion providers that can sort of provide this all-encompassing therapy that's really helpful.
For sure. And it's a part of it that I've been learning is just kind of like yeah, being an advocate for yourself is huge, and being curious to learn about your option. Like the more education that you have out there, and it is exhausting and it is overwhelming at times, but how empowering that can be when you're like, okay, I've tried this, it didn't work. I've tried this, didn't work. And yes, that does become a lot of money and the medical, the financial burden that it can have.
It's huge. Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like you've dealt with this as well, where it's not it's like outside the scope of medicine in a way. So it's not always covered by insurance. And you are now covered by certain insurances, correct?
Yeah, I am in network for a small handful of insurances. Yeah. So I'm a physical therapist, so it's covered the same as any physical therapy benefit.
Yeah. And that's, that they can, I didn't even know about, yeah, calling my insurance to check if it's covered. Physical therapy is commonly in insurance plans. And that was something for me I never even thought about, and just was like, I will pay out of pocket. Just
Yeah.
take my money at this point if that's what I have to do. And I mean, you're always, especially like Happy Brain, you're always evolving your practices, your equipment.
Yeah.
You're constantly furthering your education of learning.
Yeah.
And this is where, yeah, I definitely want to touch on this. I feel like I can like maybe hear it briefly in the background, but not that much. But yeah, when I came into your facility, I was having a lot of head pain, especially when I was working out. And you were like, I got this Livo 2 oxygen therapy. You should try this out. And I was like, I have never seen this in my whole life. It sounds like a Darth Vader experience. What is this like? But I left after so many sessions with Happy Brain being like, wow, my brain is no longer freaking out when I am working out at the gym. And I suffered years with that. So yeah, if you could take us down what Livo 2 oxygen therapy is and how it helped you, how you stumbled upon it, just kind of everything like that, because it is incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think I also remember you saying that you would get shortness of breath with working out, and after a couple sessions, you were able to get through your workout and felt like I'm not short of breath anymore. Yeah, so Livo 2 is awesome. It is adaptive contrast oxygen therapy. And so what you do is I do it using a bike. It can be done many different ways, a treadmill, strength training. But my setup is using an exercise bike. You wear a mask. There is no supplemental oxygen. So there's an air separator. And what it does is there's two different settings. So you're what we call on the mountain, which simulates a high elevation experience where there's going to be less oxygen. And what it does is if you were to go up high on a mountain, your body's natural response is for your blood vessels to open up. So they're going to dilate and you're able to circulate blood better. And so what we do is I have a couple of different workouts. It's very specific to each person, but we sort of cycle through being on the mountain and off the mountain. So off the mountain is going to be 4 times the amount of air that is in the air that we breathe. So room air at sea level is 21% oxygen. Up here in Park City, it's probably 19.5, but this gets you up to about 80%. So what we do is we go through a little workout where we open up the blood vessels on the mountain, and then we flip a switch, and then you get 80% oxygen cycling through. And what it does is it just opens up all of your blood vessels. It opens up a big thing is people get like that headache back here on the top and back of your head. That is that blood flow headache. And it just gets blood flowing in. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I can't speak
no,
more highly of it. Everybody leaves here and they say that their head feels more clear. You can think better. You sleep better. I personally ride it all the time. I got into it because a guy I know who I went to high school with, who was, like the high school athlete, then went on to play Division I lacrosse and then had a couple more injuries. And sort of as he got into his 30s, realized that he had a ton of head injuries and was really, really struggling. Like he was in a ton of pain. He was struggling to walk. He was not this sort of D1 college athlete that everybody thought of him as. And he started posting some things about it on Instagram. And I was fortunate enough that he let me come in and try it. And I was immediately sold.
hook. Yeah,
Yeah, totally. I
it's
mean,
like
even after
addicting.
totally, even after the first time I did it, like that night, I could feel sort of warmth in different areas of my body. It was like I was just getting more blood flow to those areas.
That's how I felt. I felt very elevated. I feel like a superhuman. And I guess how would having a brain injury affect, like, how, I guess, does that happen? Is it because our brain isn't allowing enough oxygen in after we hit our head? Or what would cause the dysfunction there after you hit your head?
So when you hit your head, your neurons kind of go into this neurometabolic crisis, and there's a whole bunch of chemical things that happen, but basically you have decreased blood flow. And so therefore, a huge reason that people feel symptomatic when they start to exercise again, or we say exercise, but even sometimes people just going from like lying to standing up, they feel really lightheaded. They can't walk to the mailbox because they start to get symptomatic or feeling lightheaded. It's because they have this decreased blood flow. So basically, it's an energy crisis in our brain. So we're not able to keep up we're using up all of this energy and we're not able to produce more. And then there's a decrease in blood flow.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. And a lot of people, like I've said in the past, we don't have any brain courses, concussion courses in school, and we just kind of get through the day without even thinking about how we're breathing, how we're doing these things, and how important is oxygen for the brain.
It's critical.
Like
Our brains
that,
need oxygen. So, and that's not to
yeah,
say that your brain isn't getting any oxygen. It's
for
just that
sure.
there's this sluggish blood flow, and that can lead to brain fog, headaches, difficulty. I mean, it can cause dizziness. It can cause difficulty with memory, difficulty concentrating, difficulty thinking. So the idea is to sort of exercise in general is one of the best things that you can do for concussion rehab. So getting your heart rate up, but the problem is that there's a very specific recipe to knowing how to do it, and then sort of as people become more sick and more sick, it becomes more difficult. So we say, yeah, one of the best things you can do is exercise, and people say, but I can't.
Mhm.
Every time I try to exercise, I feel worse. And so there are a couple of very specific recipes to getting through this. The oxygen bike I've found helps to sort of get you from A to B much more quickly.
Yeah. Well, and that just really emphasizes why it is so important to find a concussion physical therapy, because it's hard to gauge where you're at. You're just like, oh, when I go for a walk, I get head pain. Where does that leave me on the scale of healing? When working with a concussion physical therapist, that's what that is. You help get people, like, pushing them safely, but then also tailoring them back. I feel like a lot of people just push, 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 push and make it worse on their own
Yeah.
versus finding somebody just to, like, it's like a helping hand just to help guide you on your brain recovering.
Yeah. So there are really specific things. And that's the thing, right? And then if every time you try to exercise, then you feel worse and you sort of stop, and then it's even harder for your body to get there. And so knowing that we can get there and then knowing how to get there is really what the important piece is.
Yeah. No, and I think we need more concussion physical therapists in the world, and especially like you, because yeah, I was like, I feel so safe here and someone that gets it and all of these things. I've been really loving asking this question recently, and it's obviously different per person. Obviously, recovering from a brain injury is interesting. It's a different recipe for every person. If you were to tell somebody a couple of things to focus on in their recovery, what could their recipe be?
A good place to start is hydration, drinking a ton of water, and adding some sort of electrolyte that has salt into it. So salt is going to increase your blood volume and get more blood flowing back up to your heart and lungs and brain. Eating is really important, what we put in our body. So eating whole real foods, increasing your protein intake, because back to sort of this energy crisis that we're in, you're not able to, you're using up all of your energy and you're not producing more. And exercise. So I realize it's a bit of a double-edged sword, as we just talked about. Oftentimes people can't, but that is a huge piece. And there are many different ways to start, whether it's, starting sort of lying on your back and pedaling your feet. There are different philosophies for whether the best approach is sort of a high intensity interval training approach, or more of a progressive, heart rate specific kind of figuring out where your threshold is and then dialing it back by 15%. there are a bunch of different recipes and different things work for different people, but knowing sort of that exercise really is the key to recovery.
Yeah. No, and it's even just something little where somebody's like maybe listening and they're just like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. It's as simple as, yeah, hydrate, eat clean, good food, get fresh air, go for a walk. It's these little things, like you were saying, of just kind of how they can feel they're getting control back.
Light hours, spending time sitting outside, especially during natural blue light hours. So the time of day where the sun is rising and the sun is setting, but it's still light out. Just go sit outside with a cup of tea for 20 minutes twice a day and try to kind of even just getting in that natural light. Those are teeny little things that you can kind of do on your own. And then even just knowing sort of what the initial phase of concussion recovery looked like. There's a time when sitting in a dark room and completely avoiding your phone was advised, and that's been completely debunked. But I think that that's still circulating out there. I've certainly had people come and tell me that that's what they were told. Oh, 2 weeks of complete rest. And that's actually not the best way to recover. So the best way to recover is to get little doses of activity. There actually, and I wrote a blog post about it recently about the benefits of screen time, of actually getting some screen time. So limited, not more than 20 to 30 minutes at a time, but having that little bit of stimulation, because if you completely take away all stimulus, it's that much harder to then be able to get back into daily things, to be able to tolerate light, to tolerate screens, to tolerate talking, to tolerate noise and motion, but sort of mixing that in with periods of rest. And there was a time when I think we thought sleeping wasn't good. We wanted to wake people up. Sleeping is really good. Unless somebody has a hard time being awoken, like you can't wake them, and in which case I would take them to the emergency room.
For sure.
Or they are like slurring or, really out of it, things like that. Sleep is one of the best things that you can do. It's when
Yeah.
your brain recovers best.
It's awesome hearing that because there's so many, I'm sure, yeah, like you said, you see it all the time. There's so many misconceptions out there, and the research is always growing about the brain, and it is constantly changing. I can't imagine trying to keep up with it as, a concussion physical therapist. Even I'm like, this is just insane. The
Yeah.
brain is so complex, let alone recovering it. These are things that I'm excited for people to hear because there's so much being tossed around out there. Even the fact of you saying, yeah, get a little bit of screen time in moderation, because unfortunately, that is the way the world works today. It's almost more stressful to be like, I can't look at screens. I can't look at screens. It hurts my head. I can't look at screens. And this person now has to enter life again.
Yeah.
Like that's,
There's also social benefit, especially, for, kids who that's how they interact with their friends. But I've addressed a lot. I have a blog on my website. It's under the concussion resources tab. And I try to address a lot of these kinds of things, these misconceptions or things that are really important to know or things to do, if you had a concussion, within the last week, sort of early management strategies. So you can always take a look there to sort of learn a little bit more. Or if you have a question, you can always recommend a blog post topic to me.
we love that. We love
Yeah.
that. A deep dive.
Yeah.
Deep dive of that. Yeah, no, it's so fun learning about it. And I think the more you learn about it too, the less daunting it is.
Yeah.
Oh, this is normal. This is part of the process. Okay, I can keep putting one foot in front of the other versus being like, I am on an island. I'm alone. There's no hope. Like, it's like, it is so, like a brain injury is so messy. And like you said, it's like a fingerprint and none of them look the same. And I think normalizing that is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. What I feel isn't going to be what you feel, isn't going to be what your neighbor feels.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it. And I guess this is a good time for this then. From everything that you have seen, can the brain heal?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. Neuroplasticity. Our brains are amazing. There absolutely is the ability to heal. It doesn't matter how long it's been.
That's like one of those myths out there as well, where people are like, this is just it. This
Yeah.
is what it is now. And it's like, no, there is so much you can do.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing of it is like, take your power back and go try these things and find your recipe and just know that it can heal as if it's a knee.
Yeah. If anybody tells you you can't get better, I would not accept that.
That
There's so much that can be done.
it's very powerful to hear that from you because when you're in the thick of it, you're like, this is it. This is it.
it.
This,
How it's going to be.
this can't be it. But we're not educated enough about the brain to be like, it does have the power to heal. And what a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many different things that can be done as well. I mean, I'm also really into referring people for hormone testing. There are a lot of naturopaths and integrated medicine doctors that I think that can help a lot as well. Just making sure that everything in your body is functioning appropriately because your hormones are very affected when you have a concussion. So there's many different angles. It's just finding a provider who can give you the treatment you need and then provide you with the right resources.
It's like popping up a hood of a car and finding the engine and the oil, and you're just like, okay, what's going on under the hood?
Yeah.
Maybe we're out of oil and we need to figure that out. And yeah, go get hormone testing. And there's always a route when you feel like you've hit a wall. You might have hit a wall or a roadblock, but there's a detour of continuing to get through that.
Yeah.
And I think that's just huge to know.
Yeah. And finding the right provider, somebody who really does a deep dive at hormones. You know, some primary care doctors do, but a lot of primary care doctors that's not really their thing. So really, really looking for somebody specifically who knows concussion and understands this role.
Obviously, yes, for people that are local to Salt Lake Park City, they can go see you in person. You are that trusted provider. Thank goodness we have you on our side. And you just launched this incredible online program called the Concussion Solution. What inspired you to create that?
I wanted to provide something for people that aren't here, who either aren't local or people who kind of want to, do their own thing and not deal with appointments. And, I think we live in a generation where we can do everything from home. So want to provide access to that. But yeah, also people that are, all over the country or all over the world. So I have two different programs now. One of them is a smaller option. It's $29 and it's education. It is, I believe, 5 chapters on sort of understanding why you're feeling the way you do. So kind of takes a deeper dive into understanding the vestibular system, understanding the visual system, understanding what's going on with neck pain and neck, how dysfunction in the neck can affect many different systems in your body. And then has one section on some management strategies that you can do right away.
Awesome.
And then there's a larger program that includes all of that, plus a bit more in the management strategies section, kind of understanding the importance of sleep, understanding the importance of exercise. And then there's 14 days worth of exercises that includes aerobic exercise and then exercises specifically to coordination, vision, cognitive functioning, thinking, all of the different things. And so that's not to say necessarily that 14 days and you're going to be cured, but it's 14 days worth of exercises and then you have them for your life. So you can kind of keep going back. You can go through ones that were particularly difficult. You can sort of cycle through the 14 days. The aerobic exercise portion, it's recommended to do for at least 3 to 4 weeks. And you're going to notice a huge change if you can really stick with those things, but in particular, sticking with the aerobic section. That's really what's going to make your head to feel clearer, get your body functioning better, get that autonomic nervous system working better again.
I think it's incredible. The affordability of it, for one, the money is always the barrier. People are like, I found this help. How much is it? Oh no, it's daunting. I cannot go. And the fact that, you created this so, like, the affordability is there, the accessibility is there. People who are suffering in the Midwest can purchase this and work with somebody who they can trust. And that's huge.
Yeah. And you have access to me throughout it. There's a community forum. You can ask me questions. I can help walk you through. I am offering for a limited time for people that buy it a Zoom session. so that we can just get on a quick call and you can tell me about your symptoms and it can sort of help guide you through the program as well.
That's cool. Yeah. When I remember when it came out, I was like, oh my gosh, I would have loved this in the beginning of my journey where I was like, I don't know where to go. Google's overwhelming. I can't function. Okay, at least this is a small step that I can take for myself to start walking this path.
Yeah, and the Recovery Essentials, which is the small mini course, the $29 one, is a really good place to start because it helps you to start to understand what you're feeling and help you. I think it's very empowering to sort of knowing like, okay, this is what's happening in my body, and then okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. And would you say that would also be a good course for a caregiver to
Mhm.
even purchase if they're like, I don't know how to support my friend?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be really good. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who have purchased it, who one was like a wife who was helping her husband. And so she's like, this has been really great for me. And I've been doing the exercises with him and the aerobic piece. She's like, I feel so great. This is really great. So it's good for both of them to learn.
That's cool. That's cool. I
Yeah.
mean, your brain health is your mental health, even if you haven't hit your head, right? And I don't know, what a cool support system that the whole family is now doing these exercises and how good that is for even the person suffering going through it. They're like, okay, I can laugh about this a little more. And now I feel supported, which
Yeah.
is, that is like a
Huge.
big, yeah, it's a huge critical piece of recovery is I feel supported. I don't feel crazy. And now I'm doing these exercises with the people that I love. And what a cool full circle moment.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, what you feel is real and you're not crazy. And I think it's really hard when I think people around you don't really understand. They think like, oh, it's just a concussion. You should be better by now, or you just need psych or something like that. So I think having somebody go through the course as well, and especially with the education modules of sort of the understanding, like getting a better understanding that like, okay, my partner or my friend or whoever, they're not crazy. They're not making this up. They're not
Mhm.
their body physically just isn't working properly.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to support somebody that way.
I wish I had this program. I would have sent it to my parents and just would have been like, because people do not understand unless you have been through it. And that is the reality of a head injury is they're never going to be walking in your shoes and you also can't expect them to be. What a loving thing to do to just be like, I'm going to purchase this thing, educate myself so I can better show up for them. And along the way, you're like, oh, this does help my brain health because we do only have one brain, whether you hit it or not. We only get one.
It's true.
And
It's
science
true.
hasn't figured that out yet. And
I know.
we only get one. Yeah, do these things to just further your own brain health and, really nurture and care it.
Yeah, it's true. You only get one. We haven't figured out how to replace it yet. So,
No,
but
everything
yeah, I
else is,
think,
yeah, transplants.
yeah, I mean, I know you've experienced this and I experienced this myself of just having people not understand. And it makes it even harder because you can't control your emotions. And then it's even more frustrating when people around you, whether they're coworkers or family members or whoever, just don't understand.
It's like the peeling back the layers of the onion. Like you're just like, this one is so thick. And there was a time in my recovery, and I still go through it, right? I still have a couple of things that I deal with. And when it does happen, I'm like, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Or why is this still happening?
Yeah, you're not crazy. Unfortunately, it just can take a while. And
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm sorry, you're still struggling.
it's okay.
You've
I
made it
mean,
so far.
that's the thing too, right?
Huge.
And that's something I've been trying to understand is I'm almost 8 years now out of my brain surgery. My brain is quote unquote healthy per scan, but there's obviously a lot of psychological things that I deal with. PTSD is huge. And that's been something that I've been now trying to peel back those layers because I wasn't understanding that they're not just going to go away. And the brain, it's kind of like the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Your brain does hold on to the trauma.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to know, because I don't think we touched on this yet, that concussions don't show up on imaging. So a lot of people get told, like, you're fine. And you're just like, but I don't feel fine. And so just know that a concussion does not show up on imaging. It doesn't mean that you don't have one
Yeah.
if your images look good.
No, that's an incredible reminder. One of those seeds to plant where you're like, okay, I'm not crazy. It didn't show up. They said I'm fine. And even for me, I was like, I was told I was fine 5 times by different doctors. Little did they know my brain was bleeding. You know your body better than anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, your loved ones know you. Really trust your gut in those scenarios and be your advocate.
Yeah.
Go to a different doctor if you don't feel heard.
Yeah.
I feel like we learned that. Like that was like a part of our learning where we were like, what? What do you mean I'm fine?
I don't
Those
feel
are my
fine.
yeah, those are my least favorite words. I hate the word like I'm fine. I'm like don't. It's just frustrating that it is part of everybody's journey. I don't know, that's our hope. Even just with Saver Brain in the headquarters and bringing you on is just giving people hope. They can find the provider. They can take control. Your brain can heal. Do you have any words of hope for anyone who is in the thick of it right now and is having a hard time showing up for themselves?
That you can get better. You just need to find the right provider or providers. You need to find the right team.
Find your pit crew.
Yeah.
This is F1 racing here. Be the driver and find your pit crew. That is why they have pit crews. Everybody needs one, whether you think you do or not. You need a toolkit. Those are some good words of advice.
Yeah.
And where can people learn more about you?
You can go to my website, www.happybrainpt.com. And I'm also on Instagram as Happy Brain Physical Therapy or The Concussion Solution.
Yeah. And we'll link everything to Annie and Happy Brain. You have a lot of incredible education on all your blog, on your social media, on all of these different platforms. So yeah, I encourage anyone who is curious to go over there and really learn, because Annie is so good at breaking it down where you can understand it and not leave being like, what was that word?
Thank you.
It's a big part of it where it's like you're trying to do the work to educate yourself. And then somebody so knowledgeable hits you with these things like, now I have to Google what that means. But yeah, your blog posts are so amazing. Your content is so amazing. We definitely want to be sharing more of it, even with Save a Brain, because we all should learn this together. This is a safe space to learn that. So yeah, we're excited to have you on here. Anytime I can pick your brain, you're not picking my brain, I'm picking your brain, and you have such incredible seeds to share.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. And yeah, we will make sure we link everything. And, we're excited to continue to see Happy Brain Physical Therapy grow, and you continue to grow your own toolkit of knowledge.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's always evolving and changing.
Yeah. No, we're excited. So yeah, those are all the questions kind of on my list. Do you have anything else you feel like you want to touch on?
I think we covered a lot of it. Yeah, just don't give up hope. You can get there.
Take your power. Just take this is not the end of your road. Thank you again for joining us. I think this is going to be such a fun one to release. And yeah, we're grateful to have you. I'm grateful to have you in my own recovery.
I know. The universe brought us together, and I don't know what I would do without you. So
They did. Well, thank you, Annie.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's such an honor.